Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. So I am super excited today because we are going to be starting a new unit on the Crucible. Dun, dun, dun. So the Crucible is a play that is written by Arthur Miller. So you guys are going to be reading the play by yourselves at home, which kind of stinks. Normally I like to have us sit in a circle and then everybody has a different part that they're in charge of reading. But we're going to make do with the situation at hand. It's still an amazing play. And normally, you guys, when I do this play, I'll also show the movie alongside of it. Okay, there's a really good movie adaptation of it. So I would recommend, if you feel like spending a couple dollars to rent the movie, wait until we finish each act. And then I would go and just watch that act of the movie, or wait until we completely finish reading the Crucible and then go watch the movie, because the movie is really, really good. Okay, so I highly recommend it. So what we're going to do today is I'm just going to give you a little bit of an introduction to the Crucible. We're going to talk about kind of its history, what it's based off of, and I'm going to introduce you to the characters and a couple ideas. And that's all we're pretty much going to do today. You'll have a short assignment at the end, and we're just going to go ahead and dive right in and get started here. So usually I do this as a pair deck and we have a little bit of a discussion. I'm going to move myself up here, and we have a little bit of a discussion while we're doing it, but again, making do with what we have. So just think about the following questions. How would you handle being falsely accused of a crime simply because of the way you look or the people you associate with? How do you think these false allegations would impact your daily life, reputation, career, and family? Are these types of allegations fair? And can you think of any time in history a person or group of people was falsely accused of crimes because of the way they look or who they associate with? Okay, so these are kind of deep questions, and normally I like to have kind of a class discussion on them. I think most of us would probably agree that being accused of a crime because of the way we look or who we associate with is not really fair, right? Like, we aren't defined by how we look or who we hang out with. So times in history when groups of people have been accused of crimes, I think the biggest thing that comes to mind for me would be like World War II, right? If you were a Jew, then you were persecuted and punished because of that, just simply because of the religion you associated yourself with. And then if you were associated with a person of the Jewish faith, then you were also persecuted as well. So that's one of the biggest time periods that stands out in my mind. But there's another one, the Salem witch trials. And the Salem witch trials is actually what the Crucible is about. So a little bit of history on the Salem witch trials. It occurred in Salem, Massachusetts from 1692 to 1693. During the Salem witch trials, okay, so during this year and a half long time period, 141 people were tried as witches. So like actually put on trial as being a witch. And because of these trials, 20 people ended up dying. So 19 of them were hung, and then one of them was pressed to death by stones, which is really gruesome and brutal, right? Several more people also died because of the really harsh prison conditions. So they were, waiting in prison either for their trial or for their sentence or their prosecution or whatever. And the prisons were really garbage, right? They were like made of stone. There was no temperature control during this time period. They were dirty. They were full of like critters. They weren't fed well. So a lot of people died because of that as well. Reverend Samuel Parris was the minister of the local church during this time period. So he became minister a couple years before the Salem witch trials really started. And his character is in the play. Okay, this play is a really good representation of what actually happened in Salem during this time period. So you will see a character that is Reverend Samuel Parris, and he is the minister of the local church. Betty Parris, which is his daughter, Abigail Williams, which is Reverend Parris's niece, and then Ann Putnam, which is just one of the girls' friends, began having what they called these fits, and they couldn't be explained by medicine. Okay, and the play is going to dig into kind of what these fits were, right, and whether or not they were actually real fits. And so I'm not going to give too much away, but just know that these 3 young girls. Okay, they were young. They were like low teenage phase. They are what started all of these Salem witch trials. So what the girls did is they began pointing fingers. Okay, so they were like, oh, that person's a witch, particularly to their Barbados nurse, Tituba. Okay, and you're going to see Tituba and all of these girls in the play as well. But the girls were like, oh, she's a witch. She's the cause of all of this. And that's kind of what's the catalyst for all of these trials. So all of this started the largest witch hunt in history. Okay, so I just think that this is really funny. Okay, this is a tweet from Donald Trump, way back. You can see it's timestamped May of 2017. But this was when people were claiming that he was conspiring with Russia during the presidential election, right? And that Russia interfered. And so he tweeted this out in response to that. He said, this is the single greatest witch hunt of a politician in American history. And I just thought that this was really funny because the senator or representative from Salem, Massachusetts, tweeted this back to him. He said, as a representative of Salem, Massachusetts, I can confirm that this is false. And I just wanted to share that with you because I thought it was hilarious. Okay, so while we're talking about the witch trials and people getting put on trial for who they associate with and that kind of thing, we really need to mention MCCARTHYISM. Okay, Arthur Miller, the author of The Crucible, he was around during the time of McCarthyism. And I'm going to play a short video that kind of explains what McCarthyism is for you guys here. But Arthur Miller was put on trial during the McCarthyism period. And that's kind of what inspired him to write The Crucible. So I hope that the audio comes through well on this. If it's really awful, just pause the video, go watch this by yourself because I'll post these notes to Classroom. But we're going to give it a go here. Let's see if this works.
Imagine that one day you're summoned before a government panel, even though you haven't committed any crime or been formally charged with one. You are repeatedly questioned.
Okay, so like I mentioned before I played that video, Arthur Miller was one of those people that was impacted because of McCarthyism, because of this massive witch hunt to find these hidden communists that were conspiring against the United States, which inspired him to write this novel. Or this play. So I want to give you kind of just a quick overview of what the play is about. So there we go. So the setting is in Salem, Massachusetts, right at the start of the witch trials, so 1692. The basic plot is this. Reverend Parris, okay, the minister of the church in Salem, Massachusetts, he catches a bunch of girls dancing in the woods. Some of the girls are unable to move or speak afterwards, and witchcraft is suspected, including his daughter Betty. Now, I will say about the dancing in the woods part. So remember, this is back when everybody was Puritan. Okay, these are the early settlers, so they were all Puritan. And just as a reminder of Puritan beliefs, they did not believe in fun, basically, if I had to sum it up in a few words, right? The Puritans did not believe in fun. They believed that any sort of fun was a sin brought on by the devil. So they did not even allow dancing. So because these girls were dancing in the woods, it was seen as criminal or almost satanic, right? Satan was influencing them to do this horrific thing in the community. So because they were dancing and then because they were unable to move or speak after they were caught, that's why witchcraft was suspected. So fingers started pointing. People are accused of witchcraft, and because this is the only logical explanation to what's happening to the girls, right? Because these perfect little angel girls would never be caught dancing in the woods unless they were possessed by the devil and becoming witches or whatever. So they kind of justify it in that way. The accusations end up getting out of hand, and you're going to see that in the play, as all of the proof, quote unquote, lies in the hands of a group of scared and conniving girls. Okay, and I mentioned that on one of my previous slides. It's those 3 girls, right? Reverend Parris's daughter, his niece, and then one of their friends that start this whole kind of conspiracy and finger pointing because they got caught dancing. So these are all of the characters that I want you guys to just kind of know. Usually I go through this because I have you sign up for what character you want to play, but I'll just go through it so you're kind of aware of who we're going to meet. So obviously we're going to see Reverend Parris. He's not well liked in the community at all, and he is the minister of Salem. And then Betty Paris, I already mentioned, is his daughter. She's only 10 years old. Tituba is Paris's slave that he brought over from Barbados. So she's kind of the one, she's the first one to have her to be like kind of condemned as a witch. And then Abigail Williams is the Reverend's niece. She is 17 years old, so she's part of the original conspirators as well. Susanna Walcott is Abigail's friend, and she's just slightly younger than Abigail is. Then we have Thomas Putnam. He is one of the townspeople in this play. He's a really wealthy landowner, but he's also very greedy. He kind of likes to shove people off of their land so that he can buy it up and become even more wealthy. And then his wife is Mrs. Ann Putnam, and they both have a daughter who is quote unquote afflicted, right? So their daughter is, supposed to be a witch or whatever, or being affected by it. Then we have Mercy Lewis, and she is the Putnam servant, and also Abigail's friend. Now she gets paid. So if you were unmarried and a young girl in this time period, you would kind of be like hired out to help a wealthier family with like basic chores like cooking and cleaning and stuff. So that's what it means by servant. She's still getting paid, but not a ton. And it's only because she's young and unmarried. And then Mary Warren is Proctor, and I haven't introduced him yet, but she's Proctor's timid servant and also one of Abigail's friends. Okay, so she's another young girl who's hired by the Proctor family to help them with the chores around the house. And then John Proctor is a local farmer. He's in like his mid-30s. He's going to be one of the protagonists, one of the main characters of the play. And his wife is Elizabeth Proctor. We also have Rebecca Nurse. She is a really old, really kind, really, really respected woman that lives in the community. So you're going to see a lot of people kind of go to her for advice and for comfort and for like medicinal knowledge and stuff. She's probably around 72. Her husband is Francis Nurse, and he's also very, very kind, and they're very devout, religious Puritans. Then we've got Giles Corey. He is an older, really cranky man. He sues his neighbors a lot, so nobody really likes him, doesn't get along well with him. Then we have Reverend John Hale. So Reverend John Hale is brought in from another town as like the expert on witchcraft. So they bring him in to kind of investigate all of the witchery that's going on in their town. Then we've got Ezekiel Cheever. So he is clerk of the court. So he brings people their arrest warrants, you see in the movies where somebody hands you a piece of paper and they're like, you're served or whatever. That's what Ezekiel Cheever does. He's basically like, you've been summoned to court and I have to arrest you. And then we've got Marshall Herrick. So he's the constable of the jail. So he's kind of just in charge of like looking over all of the people that are in the jail. He likes the bottle, so he's usually drunk when we see him in the play. Then we have Judge Hathorne, and he presides over the trials. So he is like the main judge that's presiding over the trials. And I do want to say, if you remember back when we read the Scarlet Letter, and Hawthorne changed his name from Hathorne to Hawthorne. Remember, he added the W in there. This was his relative that he did not want to be associated with. Okay, Judge Hathorne was the person that made Hawthorne change his name. Okay, and then we have Deputy Governor Danforth, and so he's the Deputy Governor of Massachusetts, and he also presides over the trials. And then we've got Sarah Good. She is a homeless woman, and you're going to see she's one of the first people that's actually condemned as a nurse. And Hopkins is just a jail guard. So those are all of the characters that we are going to encounter in this play, just so you guys are kind of aware. So we're not going to actually start fully reading the play until tomorrow. But what your homework is, if you have your textbooks, if you brought your textbooks home with you, okay, the play is in the textbook. If you didn't, don't worry. I have a solution for you on the next page. But what you want to do in your textbook is read pages 826 to 832. So this is going to be some background information on Arthur Miller, and it'll be the first part of the play. Now, I will say, what I don't particularly love about Arthur Miller's plays, but what makes him famous, is that he basically writes a book before his play starts as an introduction. And you'll see, especially in the first act, he'll like insert these long passages that explain who the characters are and like give us some of their background. Now, when you're actually performing the play, none of this stuff is included, but it's included in the text to like give you some of the context and the background information on these very real characters. Okay, I want to point out that all of these characters in this play are based off of or like directly represented by people that actually lived in Salem, Massachusetts during this time period. So this is all fairly politically accurate as to what actually happened in Salem. Okay, so part of these pages that you're reading for your homework are going to be one of his long passages where he's kind of explaining the background before the play actually begins. Now, if you forgot your textbook, for this assignment, I'm going to take pictures of these pages and post them with the assignment on Classroom. I know it's not ideal, but it's the only way that I could think to get the material to you. So I hope that it's readable. I'm going to try to make it readable. Okay, but if you don't have your textbook going forward as we start reading the play, there is this link that I have on this slideshow, okay, that you guys can access the full text. Okay, so it's digitally online for you guys to access that way. Okay, so that's how you're going to be doing it going forward if you forgot your textbook. But everybody else, use your textbook and make sure that you go and you do that homework. It is posted on Google Classroom, and we will actually start reading the play tomorrow. So what my video lessons are going to look like going forward, they're going to be super short. This play is not like Shakespeare. It's not hard to understand. The language is a little bit old school, but it's super duper easy to understand. So you guys should not have any problem understanding what's happening in the play. But what I will do is I will just hop on here and kind of give you like an introduction to the section that you're reading. And then as we progress through the play, it'll also include kind of a review of what you read the day before, just highlighting some things that I want you to make sure that you're aware of and looking at and understanding. So my videos will be super short going forward, and the majority of your time spent on this class is going to be spent reading and filling out the study guides. And your study guides are going to serve as your attendance for the day, and also they're going to help you study for the quizzes because you will have a quiz after every act. So just so you guys know, that's kind of the plan going forward, and I'll explain more in my video tomorrow. That's all I have for now. Go do your homework. I'll talk to you guys later.